Hello and welcome. We bring you Dr. Neha Dev today, and she will be introducing herself and then saying a few words for inspiration. Neha, all yours.
Yeah, it's good to meet you all, guys. I'm Neha. I am working here in Massachusetts General Hospital in the Harvard program. So I was actually originally born in Fiji, and I immigrated to Canada at age 3. And then I came to the US when I first started medical school at Mayo Clinic. And so I'm doing my internal medicine preliminary year here at MGH, and then I'm going to University of Colorado for dermatology. And I came to the US through a recruitment program for Mayo Clinic. There's a lot of diversity recruitment programs, and the Emerging Scholars Program is one at Mayo. And, those 4 years were really tough. I was away from family during the pandemic. The pandemic started when I was in first year and really started to go out of control in April. And so I wasn't able to see my family or visit for a year and a half because the US and Canadian border were closed. And, flying was always supposed to be a way of going home if I felt homesick. But thankfully enough, I did find friends who became my new family in Minnesota while the border was closed. And I also ended up finding my future husband in my third year of medical school. And we're getting engaged. So some positives there as well during the 4 years. And with dermatology, I was first interested because I liked the variety it encompassed, but it's a really specialty or competitive specialty in the US. It's probably top 3. So I knew I had to really build a strong application, and research really helped me stand out in that regard. It was a really big part of my journey as well. When I started, I had never published a manuscript or a paper. I had only done data entry and doing the survey studies and administering them for participants in Canada. So in first year, I wanted to get more involved, but a lot of attendings were telling me you should wait for, first year to end, transition, and then you can, start the research. But I really wanted to get started now. And Dr. Kashyap took me seriously. And during my 4 years of medical school, I published more than 30 papers. I learned things like Excel and REDCap and reviewing and editing papers. So now I feel a lot more confident in getting involved in projects, but then also figuring out what's the timeline going to be. Because, some people commit to really big 3-4 year project or year projects and don't get as much done. And so I wanted to make sure that these publications could come out in 1 or 2 years so I can put it on my application. And during my interviews for US residencies, I was asked a lot about my experiences and what I learned. And I really did realize how important the team is who helped me get stronger in writing manuscripts and becoming better in presenting at conferences. And, in my research journey, I went to a lot of conferences that I could present my research at. A lot of them were virtual because it was during the time of the pandemic. And so I got a lot of experience networking with people too, which was really valuable. When I think about mentors who have really made a difference for me, I have my dermatology mentor at Mayo, Dr. Alavi, who was always really kind in providing me constructive feedback. And she helped me meet more faculty members in the department and work with them. And this was really helpful in networking for the match. I actually also started more projects through this way. And, like I mentioned with Dr. Kashyap, he really took me seriously in building a competitive profile that I started being able to show with the publications and my track record. And I was really serious about learning new things in the research space, and I put in that time to learn more as well. So when I think about, looking for mentors and who the best were overall, characteristic traits like those who can respond quickly to emails, can answer questions to keep the project moving forward, and also mentors who care about your well-being or how the current chapter in your life has been faring, like more invested in your personal development. Those were the ones I felt most connected to because I felt like they cared and that I wasn't just going to provide them publications. But there are a lot of things I also saw kind of go wrong when a lot of my classmates were figuring out how to go about research and explore that space. Some key things that I noticed is, those who wait too long to respond to the email or go 1 or 2 weeks without continuing on the project, you really lose that momentum of the project and it slows down and you sometimes don't even remember what you had done and what was completed before you stopped doing it. So that really impacts, I feel like, productivity of publishing. And another thing, I feel like people weren't realistic as much in the beginning. Some of my classmates, they're talking about publishing in JAMA and Journal of American Association of Dermatology, which is the big dermatology journal, but not actually thinking whether or not it would be helpful for their application. I saw others maybe not taking as much opportunities to get involved at research conferences. There are so many new ones that are virtual in the US, and they also count as one publication equivalent on the application when you apply on ERAS. Another thing I feel that people can struggle with is staying consistent and organized. Figure out what works for you in that case, whether it's using folders to keep all the data in or the Excel files. You kind of have to explore to figure out what works for you best. And then the final thing I would say is people not spending enough time on research kind of struggle with getting things finished because these projects need a lot of time commitment. And I was able to publish a lot of papers by being consistent. And I used to try to only spend even just 30 minutes a day on research work, which really helped it kept moving throughout my year. And that's how I was able to complete projects and then start new ones, which led to new publications. When I think about life lessons and applying to residency as well, I think there's some big things I wanted to mention. Research can really influence the other aspects of your app, not just the research section. So things like letters can be really valuable, and a lot of your letter writers will be research mentors probably. And the letters will become stronger the more work you're able to complete. And also I was able to answer more situational questions when I interviewed for residency, things like conflict in a team group or addressing concerns. Those are really common questions they're going to ask you on the interview day. And I was able to use some of my research experiences to answer them. Another big lesson is, I think you should totally keep going at it and finishing a project little by little. Things will develop over time, but if you find a research lab or team that you like, really keep to those teams because the productivity of the lab or the research team is really valuable to know about. If people have published a lot in the past, they will probably continue to do so. And so I made an intentional effort to make sure I found teams that were really productive so that I could also contribute and get publications by putting in the work. The final thing I'll mention is it's so important to also just keep having fun with, the research experience. Do projects you enjoy in topics that you like to talk about or you're genuinely interested. And people in the interviews will see that because, people perk up or become more excited to talk about their project. So that will definitely shine through interviews as well. And that's all I wanted to mention. Thank you.
Thank you, Neha.
Thank you.
That was fantastic. There's one thing before we open up for questions, and I'll ask at least 3 or 4. I'll let our group ask at least 3 or 4 questions. One thing which was your system was such that even if I would not pay attention to the progress of the project, you always will come back. Your communication as a mentee was perfect. Like you always communicate, hey, 2 or 3 months in advance, that particular block is coming up. Can I do some things at the time? I have my exams coming up 2 months from now. So the communication helped a lot at the time. I mentored quite a few. Every 2 years, I used to take one medical student at the time, and you were the final medical student because of my appointment change after that. But I think your system of following up worked really, really well because sometimes as a mentor, we get busy, but you never missed a follow-up on anything. And that's the biggest reminder. Now during your residency, we are co-authoring a paper with you and Dr. Nawaz, and then the follow-up and then going through with that part was very, very helpful. So it takes two to tango. Means you can't just have a good mentor. A mentee has to be equally good to be really productive. I've not worked with too many medical students who have published 30 papers during their residency medical school. That is every paper every other month for that matter. So I just want to mention that to everybody. Well, we stop the recording now, and so our scholars can ask questions. Thank you so much, Dr. Dev, and like and subscribe to our channel if you're watching this video.